To teach is a noble calling, a power to shape the future and transform the next generation. One teacher's voice has the power to transform how a student understands the world. Dr. Jayeel Cornelio, a lifelong educator and a visionary leader, with the aim of bringing science to the people, he believes it is never just about facts and figures, but a powerful tool for capacity building, empowering teachers, and shaping the nation's future. Named among the outstanding young scientists, recognized as one of the world's top 2% researchers, yet at his core, still a teacher, who once stood before high school students in Las Piñas, sparking the first embers of curiosity and hope. Today, he takes that stage, not just to speak, but to remind us why teachers matter and why hope will always be our greatest lesson.
Hello everyone! Ako si Dr. Jayeel Cornelio, Director ng Science Education Institute ng DOST. This is the inaugural episode of our newly revamped Spotlight series. Ang goal natin sa series na ito is to equip you, our teachers across the country, with YouTube-based learning resources. In the coming episodes, we shall be featuring seasoned scientists and educators who will be sharing their expertise. This inaugural episode speaks to you, my fellow educators. Gusto ko makapagbahagi ng isang message of hope sa inyong lahat. You and I know that being a teacher in this country is not easy. From the difficulties we face in the classroom to the troubles of the education sector, para bang pasan kasi natin yung problema ng buong Pilipinas. And if our student fails, kahit hindi naman talaga natin kontrolado ang mga maraming bagay, it feels like we've failed miserably sa pagiging guro natin. For many of our teachers today, hope may be elusive. And some of us might even be thinking of giving up already. Baka ikaw yon. Now, the message I have for you, my friend, is about hope. Not the feeling, but that deliberate act of saying no to darkness and fear. Sometimes, that call arrives in a resounding voice, but more often, in a whispering fashion that reminds you that the future must be better. It ought to be better. But we need to build it today. This hope is not about passively waiting for the future to arrive. Hindi natin to hinihintay. That kind of hope is dangerous. For the philosopher Hannah Arendt, passive optimism takes our eyes away from the realities of the present. Thus, yung pag-asang niyayakap natin ngayon is one that leads us to act not tomorrow, but today. Kagaya ninyo, isa rin akong educator. When I graduated from college more than 2 decades ago, I chose to be a high school teacher to begin my professional career. This was in spite of another option, meron pa akong isang option, that others would consider better, more lucrative, more prestigious. That decision disappointed a few of the closest people in my life. Tanong nila sa akin, Jayeel, ano ba yung point? Graduate ka, top of your class, tapos magiging teacher ka lang? I know many of you, my friends, can relate to this. But something deep inside convinced me that I made the right decision. Alam nyo, throughout that year, my high school students validated what I felt. I was assigned to teach research, pero many of my students willingly opened up about their lives, their personal struggles, even their mental health. Maybe it was my personality, maybe it was the narrow age gap between them and me. Ano man yung reason nila for being honest with me, the many encounters I had with students made me realize that our young people needed companionship. Not authority figures, but companions who were ready to acknowledge, spend time, and listen to them. At the end of that school year, my first as a teacher, the overwhelming majority of my students chose me to be the recipient of their batch's teaching award. Fast forward to my life as a university professor. Ganun pa rin. I was of course happy teaching in the classroom. But it was the interactions with students outside the classroom that I found to be far more worthwhile. Halimbawa, yung mga consultation na dapat 30 minutes lang, they became an hour-long conversation about their dreams, struggles, and fear. Through those conversations, yung mga relationships na na-build ko with students who later on became friends and colleagues. Cura personalis, or care for the whole person, ang tawag namin dito bilang mga professor sa Ateneo de Manila University. In the context of education, this principle is about mentorship. The patient process of spending time with our students and junior colleagues to get to know them and help them, enable them to grow as human beings. Alam ko, nakakapagod ang pagiging isang mentor. But my friends, you and I know na it's worth it. After having taught in college for more than a decade, I know that none of those moments was wasted. My students and young colleagues are now making their mark sa research, sa academe, sa development work. In fact, yung iba nga sa kanila, naging co-author ko pa or collaborator sa iba't iba kong mga research projects. Yung iba naman, now doing their PhDs abroad with the clear intent na babalik sila dito sa Pilipinas upang paglingkuran yung kanilang mga komunidad. I'm sure you yourself, you have your own stories to tell. Unfortunately, hanggang ngayon, mababa ang tingin ng marami sa pagiging guro. Hanggang ngayon, ina-underestimate ang pagiging guro. Hanggang ngayon, hindi nauunawaan ng marami ang mga pinagdadaanan ng mga guro. I know many of you can relate to these discouraging statements. You've done everything, and yet you feel that none of it is enough. What makes these statements more damaging, insulting, nakadi-disappoint, is if they come from your own people, your own community. Nakwento ka naman, di ba kanina, yung naging reaction ng mga close sa akin when I decided to become a teacher 20 plus years ago? Sa isang teacher naman na nakausap ko sa Surigao, masakit daw na mismo mga kapwa teacher niya ang nagda-down sa kanya just because idealistic pa rin daw siya. The irony, my friends, is that wala rin namang magsasabi sa atin na hindi na natin kailangan ng teachers sa bansa natin. Kahit pa mababa ang tingin sa mga teachers. My fellow teachers, I want you to know that you are seen. You, your troubles, your disappointments. And in spite of your hardships, many of you remain committed to your idealism. You are seen, and you are not alone. I think for many of us, we chose to become teachers not because we wanted to be rich. I think many of us would agree that we chose this career path because we care. In my experience, the best teachers are the ones who care because they want to bring out the best in their students. The authors David Scheidecker and William Freeman have a name for these kinds of teachers: legendary teachers. To be a legendary teacher has nothing to do with being theatrical, with being funny, with being intimidating, or with being strict. Instead, it's about challenging oneself and inspiring their students to become the best versions of themselves. This is why legendary teachers communicate well, and they set high standards for their students. But also, these teachers live by their own high standards too. Kaya pa nakikita ng mga estudyante sa mga teachers nila na isinasabuhay nila yung high standards nila, sila ay na-challenge, nakikita yung kanilang authenticity, and at the same time, na-inspire. In my experience, modeling the way doesn't happen only in the classroom. If we really want to challenge our students to transcend their limitations, it is important for us as teachers to first and foremost understand the barriers in front of them. Sa mga nakaraang buwan, marami ng sessions ang na-facilitate ng SEI kasama ang mga teachers. Sa mga sessions na ito, marami silang na-share about their students. Halimbawa, gusto man daw nilang matuto ang mga bata, pero maraming mga barriers katulad ng kakulangan ng nutrition or kakulangan ng pag-unawa sa kanilang mental health. Sabi naman ng isa pa naming teacher na nakausap sa Butuan, hindi naman daw niya masisi ang isa niyang student na laging absent. Nung kinausap kasi niya, na-discover niya na tumutulong pala siya sa kanyang tatay na isang coconut farmer. I will be the first, my dear friends, to admit na itong mga barriers na ito, they have neither standard nor easy solutions. Pero at the very least, it matters kasi na maramdaman ng mga bata na merong nakakaintindi sa kanila. Therein, my fellow teachers, lies our hope as a community. The hope I refer to comes not in the form of entertainment or spectacle in the classroom, but through everyday acts of listening to our students and making them feel they're not alone, and convincing them that they can be better versions of themselves. This is what the activist Mariam Kaba means when she says that hope is not a feeling, but discipline. To hope is a deliberate daily practice, even if it is hard. Kung baga, hope is not a feeling, it's an action word. For Mariam Kaba, to hope is to resist the status quo, and we must do this every day. With respect to our education crisis, to resist the status quo is to pay attention to those who are left behind and the barriers before them. Why? Because we remain in the conviction that every child deserves to have a fighting chance at life. Sabi ni Colleen Wilcox, teaching is the greatest act of optimism. But make no mistake, our optimism is not wishful, passive thinking. We choose to be educators because we are full of hope that what we do alongside our students makes a difference. Yung pagiging sangkot sa realidad ng mga kabataan, yun sa palagay ko ang isa sa mga dahilan kung bakit in the course of my career, I have remained grounded in people's struggles. Naging HR professional worker ako, naging development worker din ako, tapos later on, naging sociologist and professor. In these capacities, nababad ako sa realidad ng mga barangay health workers sa Batanes, mga factory workers ng semiconductor industry, mga kabataang Maranao na naapektuhan ng Marawi Siege at ng mga pamilyang sinalanta ng war on drugs. Today, director na ako ng SEI. At hindi nagbabago ang disposisyon ko sa buhay. If teaching is the greatest act of optimism, the role of a national government agency like the Science Education Institute is to sustain that optimism among our teachers and students. At gaya ng mga nasabi ko na dito, the only way to sustain hope is by being grounded in the struggles of our young people. We do so by listening to them, accompanying them, and working alongside them. This is why the hope we embrace as educators is not rooted in the future that is yet to happen. We are not passively waiting for tomorrow. The brand of hope to which we subscribe is rooted in the here and now, right in the struggles that affect our students and all of us. And because it is grounded right where we are, the choice is clear. We must deal with it. That is how we proclaim a resounding no to the education crisis before us. On a final note, I wish to speak to the teachers among us who are on the brink of giving up, if they haven't done so. You too, ikaw rin, mahalaga. At one point in time, you believed that teaching is a noble profession. Naniwala ka dun. But you lost it, maybe because of one disappointment after another. Today, I want to speak to you, encourage you, urge you, recover that lost hope, and witness that not all is lost. All over this country, our young people are still fighting. You and I are educators. And our calling is to stand alongside these young people so that together, this nation can keep hoping, believing, fighting.